Hi, I'm Terry Murphy, the executive senior editor for Realty Times, especially for women in business, women in real estate, and today, women in mortgage. And I'm excited, actually honored, to have Karen Deis, the founder of Mortgage Girlfriends, as our guest today. And Karen, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, you're welcome, and thanks for asking me, Terry. I'm so excited to talk about, the history of how we got involved in Mortgage Girlfriends.
Yeah, Mortgage Girlfriends. I mean, you started when women were not loan originators. This goes back to the 70s, and you started as a simple receptionist. And that was you. I mean, I'd like to say that you are the role model for being unstoppable. And you have created a legacy over the years that has been a safe place, a supportive place, a coaching place, and a networking place for women in mortgage. Tell us a little bit about how you got started. I mean, you clearly weren't an author then. You weren't a coach then.
Yeah.
You weren't. You just were a loan originator. And what were some of the things that you had to put up with before you could even finish that?
Well, it all started in my childhood. And I have to tell you that my mother was an activist, and I grew up in the 60s, and my mother would take around petitions to our neighborhood. She was involved in voter registration. We went to the first Earth Day, and my mother burned her bra. And so,
okay,
I know. And so that's what we were exposed to as children and as growing up. And so I've always felt that based on her, oh gosh, what word is it?
I would say her tenacity,
Compassion.
panache. I mean, this woman, she burned her bra when nobody ever even talked about bras. So.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, so when I went into the mortgage business, and then decided that I was going to be a loan officer, I was told that women are not loan officers and that they don't work on commission. And I'm perfectly happy. They're perfectly happy with where I was at. And so I decided I was going to quit. I went to a bank for about a year, and then they asked me to come back because they had an opening, quote unquote, for a loan officer. And from day one, just really did really well and made lots of money. So the other thing that happened, this was quite interesting, is that when I went back to become a loan officer, I had a competitor call me up and say, when you don't make it as a loan officer, why don't you come back and work for us back in the closing department?
Oh,
which
wait.
really pissed me off.
Oh, wait. Well, I bet you showed them. Go ahead.
We did. I had another mentor. His name was Chris Salazar. He's passed on since then, but he was the publisher of Mortgage Originator magazine.
I was a writer.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You were.
For many years. I was their total realtor.
And what was cool about Chris, and you can probably back me up on this, is he was a big supporter of women in the mortgage industry. He allowed us to be on the board of directors. We became editors in sections. I think you were an editor in a section of it as well. Excuse me. And so he was a big supporter, and he would actually call me up and coach me. Just say, well, why don't you do this? Or let's go ahead and hold a seminar. Or let's do this. And he was the other person that pushed me to embrace and mentor women in the mortgage industry, because he also realized that there weren't many women mentors around.
Well, you had mentioned that that women simply conduct business differently than men. We know that. Tell us, but what was your observation when you were in those early days of the difference between how you were conducting business as basically a solopreneur, because there were very few women at the time, and all those men?
Well, when it first started, when I first became a loan officer, I did not play golf. I did not sit around at bars and drink, and take out people to dinner and that type of thing. But what I did was establish relationships. And I don't think you need to establish relationships by sitting at a bar or taking people out to dinner, that type of thing. It's more of a personal relationship and more of a connection with the real estate agents and with the consumers. And so that's where I think it's a lot different than men. And one of the things that I did is, I mentioned that we attended there was a seminar that we attended. There was 100 people that were there. When we showed up, there were 4 women and 96 men. And when we were listening to their talk about sales and marketing, the things that they did, one of the girlfriends, her name's Kelly McGinnis, and I went back to our offices, tried to implement them, and found out that it just didn't work for us, whatever that technique was. So when we talked it through, we said, hey, that is a great idea, but that's not how we would implement it. So that's what her and I worked on different ways of saying, okay, now as women owners, this is how we would do it. And so that's what started a lot of the support for women when we realized that we couldn't follow them, or we couldn't implement what the men were preaching, and it worked perfectly for them, but it didn't for us. Then that's when we realized that could be a problem for other women who are attending seminars like that.
Well, thank you for that. We love men. We just know
Right.
that we operate and network and create relationships differently. One of the things I have to admire about you is how you carry the same mantra that we do here at Women in Business, Women in Real Estate, and that is women supporting women. And you've done a great job with that. You literally had to start your own company so that you could do your own thing. And Kelly, I believe, is still on your board of advisors.
Yes.
And that's many years later.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's another thing about supporting women in business. So I would say to you, when you decided to have live events, where there was a point in time, because not only are you a dynamic speaker and expert witness, sales and marketing expert, I mean, you and I have known about each other since the Mortgage Originator days.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you realized that you had to take it to the next level. The community had to grow, and we didn't have communities at the time. And you have live events. You bring in expert speakers on your board of advisors. You have somebody who specializes in military, someone who specializes in credit. How has that helped you empower those women to grow their businesses?
Well, I have to tell you, it all started, again, back with Kelly and I when we were business owners, mortgage company business owners, and we decided we were going to launch some seminars for women owners. And again, Chris Salazar helped us identify some of the women owners through his subscriptions. So our first meeting, I think we had 12 women. Our next meeting, we had 20-some women owners. And so it expanded from there, and we could see that that we all needed the support, and we would have conference calls. We didn't have video at that time. We'd have conference calls on a regular basis, just talking about the industry, that type of thing. So then it moved on to one of the women asked me to come in and speak to their loan officers. And this gal had mostly women loan officers there, so that's what started that. So we started a small support group on that. And then it was 2007 is when we first started Mortgage Girlfriends and started the live events. It started out, Terry, with 13 women. It started out with 13 women, and it doubled every year. We had, in this last year, we had over 100 women. In fact, we do limit it on purpose to 100 women, just because, and you've been at 3 of our events already, which was fabulous, because we want them to network, to get to know each other, build those personal relationships, and be more involved in the workshops that we offer. If you have thousands of people, you cannot do that. And we hold the event in October. It's sold out by June. Oh, so that's
it's a
testament to the women who attend. And the feedback that we get from that, Terry, is that this is nothing like we ever attended before. We get to talk freely. We get to share ideas. We get to exchange networking. We get to exchange emails, and we can talk to each other. And I know a lot of the women have become good friends they live across the country, but they're good friends, and I hear on a regular basis how they still network and they do video conferencing with each other as well.
Oh yeah, it's created relationships that has gone on since 2007. That's a long time. It's 13 years that you've been doing this, and it's an enormous amount of work. And in between all that, I can't even tell you what this woman does. She's a Loan Officer Magazine, Apartment Toolkit, loan officer training, a writer, blogger, and coach. Why did you sell your company and transition to doing what you're doing now?
Oh, okay. First of all, I started my company because I was fired from my other company. And the reason I was fired is that, well, how do I say this? They told me that I was outside the box. I didn't fit within the parameters of what a large corporation should be, and that I had to change my ways. I did my own marketing. I did my own prospecting as opposed to allowing the company to prospect for me. And then one day they brought in a new manager, and they brought in a new manager, and they pretty much cleaned house and started over. And so I said, this is a perfect opportunity to do so. Plus my sister was a CPA. So I'm the sales end of it. She's the financial end of it. And she did an absolutely fabulous job. She negotiated all of our contracts. She did all the pricing. She did all the balancing. And within 3 months after I was fired from my old company, we outclosed that company within a 3-month time period. And then for probably, let's say, 8 years, we were the #3 mortgage company in my town. And that's after the banks and the savings and loans and the credit union. So we were #3. My sister, about 4 years into starting the company, and by the way, it was an all-women mortgage company, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And towards the end, when I closed the company, she was pretty much, how do I say it? She was really had issues, I guess. I don't know how to say this. And just before she passed away, we sold the company. So decided at that particular, the other thing that happened there, Terry, after she passed away was my husband had an opportunity to go to work for a company in the Minneapolis area. And so the two things converged, saying, okay, I have the opportunity to close the company and then move and then go online to train loan officers instead. So again, Chris Salazar, we talked about setting up an online magazine together, and then he turned around, he passed away, and I continued on with the online magazine. So that had been going on since the year 2001. And also during that time, I was holding seminars with MGIC. MGIC contacted me and asked me if I could put on seminars throughout the country with speakers, and it was called Mortgage Stars at that particular time. And we would go around the country and charge us a nominal amount. And we had hundreds and hundreds of loan officers, and that lasted for about a 3-year time period. So not only was I online, I was also out there face to face with other loan officers and company owners. So that's how I feel that I became a little bit famous. So
A little bit famous. Yeah, you're a legend. So here's something to think about, Karen. And I know we're going to have this as a separate quick segment. That convergence of your sister's passing and having to moved you to online. And how fortuitous that was, because it was before people were online and you were doing trainings. And so you were one of the visionaries for online training, and specifically for women in real estate, which made you the only woman in mortgage doing something to that effect. So I guess that transition from online training created another whole level of celebrity authority for you, for resources for women. And that still goes today. You're still coaching and consulting and writing training programs and a live speaking, of course, when we get back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me?
Go ahead.
Can you tell me, do you can look back now and see that as being a tremendous silver lining in that transition?
Oh, yes, definitely. Even though I miss my sister every single day, it's it was absolutely life-changing for me and my family. And one other thing happened at that particular time, because now I was working from home, and my children were just just becoming teenagers. So that also helped me, saying, okay, now I can sit here and I can watch them and help them, get through high school and get through college. So
Yeah,
that
good timing.
that
Good
that
timing.
happened. Yeah, everything was timing.
And I believe that in every transition there is a silver lining, and I appreciate where we are today because it's forcing people to do the kinds of things we're doing right now. And I would just say, what can women in mortgage, what in the industry, what can they expect if they join the Sisterhood of Mortgage Girlfriends?
So many things. We provide sales and marketing strategies on a weekly basis for women and how they do business. A lot of our authors, including you, Terry, have been published on our Mortgage Girlfriends website. We provide downloads, we provide marketing materials, we provide interviews for women who have successfully used sales and marketing strategies or business strategies. There are podcasts on there, there's videos on there. But one of the huge benefits are coaching. So included in the registration are coaching sessions. We call them Diva Strategies, where we'll sit down one-on-one. It's not on a mass basis like a lot of coaches have. Let's get 15 people on the call and everybody talk at once. It's one-on-one, getting personal with the girlfriend, finding out what their issue is, or if there's some strategy that they hoped to implement, can we help you along with that? And then we have follow-up sessions with them on a regular basis. We also provide, again, the annual event. We're probably the annual event for the Mortgage Girlfriends. This year, I don't know, but.
Well, tell us real quick as we wrap this up, where can we get more information about Mortgage Girlfriends, and is it limited only to women in mortgage?
It is only limited to women in mortgages, and it's at www.mortgagegirlfriends.com.
And how can they reach you directly? What's your best email address?
Karen@mortgagegirlfriends.com.
I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I totally respect and admire what you've done. I know what it takes to blaze a new trail, and you've been just an awesome asset to women in business, women in real estate, women in mortgage, and just as a BFF, Karen. You're the best. Thank you so much for joining us here at Realty Times, and I hope we can come back and get you again for another visit to women in business and women in real estate. Thanks for joining us.
I'm honored, Terry. Thank you.